You the rest of the way. Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL on the go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go with DHL on the go. Ship your parcel overseas? Finding it a hassle to ship your parcel overseas? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't need to travel to the drop-off point or could avoid filling out lengthy consignment notes? With DHL on the go, you can now send parcels or documents easily. Tell us your shipping details and let our chatbot guide you the rest of the way. Make payment through a secure payment gateway. Arrange a pickup at your preferred location. All of this is done via WhatsApp from your home, office, or anywhere, at any time. Scan the QR code or WhatsApp us now. Ready, chat, go! With DHL on the go.
Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to the Digital X Asia 2020 live virtual conference. If you're someone who has been here since the morning, we hope that you have enjoyed the cybersecurity power panel and the financial track earlier this morning, and also enjoyed your lunch. If this is your first session, and whether you are currently watching this on WebEx, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, thank you very much for joining us. Once again, my name is Myra Baiti from Star Media Group's award-winning Rage Investigative Journalism team, and I'm your host for this 4-day live virtual conference. For those of you who just joined us, I'm excited to share with you that we are running a special daily prize draw at this program. We have a total of 24 prizes to be given away, and you can stand a chance to win any of these 3 exciting prizes at each of the 8 sessions. Philips Bluetooth wireless headphones, Skull Candy wireless headphones, and the Honor Band 5 Sports Edition. All you need to do is stay with us till the end of each session, and you will stand a chance to win these exciting prizes. We'll be announcing today's winners on tomorrow's morning. I really hope that you stay because we only have 4 more sessions left, and I hope that you get these free gifts. So before we start, just a few quick housekeeping matters. Please be patient if you experience any technical or internet glitches. This is a live online event and everyone dials in from different internet bandwidths and devices. For WebEx participants, your microphone and your video camera are turned off by default, but feel free to chat with our events crew directly if you need any assistance. You can also email us at events@thestar.com.my if you need any assistance from us. Lastly, and most importantly, please engage, learn, and enjoy. All right, to kick off this afternoon session, we would like to play you the opening power panel that happened earlier this morning. The Cybersecurity Power Panel discussed rethinking cybersecurity strategies and re-evaluating security models to create a culture of cyber resiliency by rewriting security roadmaps to transform businesses in 2021. It was participated by a powerful lineup of guest speakers. Abid Adam, the Group Chief Risk and Compliance Officer of Axiata, Dr. Fadullah Suhaimi, Chairman of MCMC, Murari Kalyana Ramani, the Executive Director of Cybersecurity Services at Standard Chartered Bank, and moderated by Asuhan, our very own Senior Editor of The Star Online. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the replay of Re-Engineering Security in the Next Normal.
All keeping well, and Assalamu alaikum to everybody. My name is Abid Adam. I am the Group Chief Risk and Compliance Officer for Axiata. Already introduced that.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the lovely introduction, Myra. And welcome to our power panel, Re-Engineering Security in the Next Normal. You've already been introduced to our guests, so I'm going to get right to it and first ask them to explain about what they do and what their charters are in their respective organizations. So I'll start with you, Abid, since you're here, right?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sohan and the fellow panelists. I hope you're all keeping well, and Assalamu alaikum to everybody. My name is Abid Adam. I am the Group Chief Risk and Compliance Officer for Axiata. And my key responsibilities, I look after the 4 key areas, which is cybersecurity, data privacy, compliance, ethics, integrity, and enterprise risk management. So that's what keeps me awake, and that's what has made me lose all my hair. Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks. Murari, can you go next?
Yeah, hi, Murari here, and I currently head Global Application and Infrastructure Security for Standard Chartered Bank. and that coverage extends to our global footprint. So it's 70 countries, around 1,200 over offices and branches, and protecting over 87,000 employees.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Farullah. You have
Uh,
the stage.
right.
Yours is the yours will be the, I think, most look forward to.
Hi, good morning. Assalamualaikum to Asohan and fellow panelists and everyone. I'm currently heading MCMC, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. We pretty much, our remit falls under the Act of Communications and Multimedia Act that covers the industries of telecommunications, broadcasting, postal and courier, as well as Digital Signature Act. So that pretty much covers the whole gamut of what's online.
Okay, thank you. Now we go straight into some of the questions that we or areas we'd like to explore. And of course, first in everyone's mind is the global pandemic and how it has changed the way we live and the way we do business. So I'd like the panelists to start off by talking about how has it changed the cybersecurity landscape specifically. I think I will start with you, Abid. Can you tell us what your organization was doing before, and quickly go into how the pandemic has changed, if anything, how you work and how you approach cybersecurity for your own organization?
Thank you, Sohan. So I think more than change, I think there are a few things that has expanded or accelerated. Number one, and number two, there are new things that we're seeing evolving faster. So allow me to elaborate three key items that I think I see personally what has evolved. Number one, if you're talking about from a cybersecurity perspective, I think it's an increase in broader attack landscape. All right, and I'll elaborate again.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that one.
Yeah. I would like to just outline the three, and then I'll explain the details behind it. So the number one was increase in broader attack landscape. Number two was the issue of data privacy, as you mentioned. So disclosure or protecting thereof has now been even more important than before. More sort of on a virtual meeting fatigue, but that leads to cyber attacks also, because people now maybe clicking on links, they are tired, and they see a lot of emails coming through. And this has been proven with the facts. We've seen significant increase in phishing attacks globally. FBI reported 300% increase. Cybersecurity Malaysia has reported similar increase in number of phishing attacks. So I think those are kind of things that we have seen, not it's new, but it has increased because of the very nature of the pandemic itself. Allow me to elaborate on item one, which I've shared with you, which is increasing broader attack landscape. What I mean by that is, if you look at the concept of work in office versus work from home, when you work in office, generally your infrastructure is adequately secure and managed by the relevant technical functions. When you're working from home, the very router that you use or the network equipment you use to connect to the office network is not managed by your IT department. So somebody who maybe have bought a router, a cheapest one that they wanted to, and those cheapest router has a default password admin, or sometimes doesn't even have admin password, it's completely blank. But that now becomes your security team's responsibility, ensuring that that infrastructure is protected, because that is how that person is connecting into your environment. So that has obviously increased the things we need to protect, the things we need to look out, and also train our users around how do you make sure that that becomes part of our broader ecosystem. So I'll pause there, Sohan, and share that with you.
Ravi, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I think leveraging what Abid was saying, the attack surface, right? So I think from a business standpoint, I think there's been more reliance on leveraging digital channels to provide services, and I think this is not just with banking, but even consumer goods. So a lot of organizations had to pivot from traditional brick and mortar kind of operations. So you take banks where branches, for example, a number of countries had to be shut down. And that pivoted a lot of push of features, capabilities, and service through mobile channels. So that became suddenly a very attractive attack surface because there's more opportunities there to exploit. I think the other thing to add there as well is more adoption of cloud technology, because I think a lot of infrastructure and application teams to not only support the business but also customers had to scale very quickly. So the adoption of cloud technology, working with partners like, AWS and Azure, for example, has again, changed the attack surface from, sitting behind our networks to actually extending our networks into the public domain. I think on the threat perspective, I mean, again, I won't repeat what Abid had said. I think I agree with those points. But I think, what COVID has also done is sort of heighten the awareness and monitoring around insider threats. And what do I mean by that? I think with economic conditions as such, organizations, potentially having to retrench employees, reduce benefits, reduce salaries, bonus, there's probably increased motivation for employees who are impacted, who have actually very, increased access to systems to actually commit fraudulent activities. So I think insider
The
threat is definitely one thing.
The whole disgruntled employee thing.
Correct. So I think that has also taken a heightened importance to keep a close eye on as well.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Fadrullah. I mean, being with MCMC, I'm not so much interested in how your organization has approached work from home in the global pandemic, but how you as the industry regulator see the landscape changing. What think MCMC can do about it? I mean, has there been increase in complaints about cybersecurity breaches? Have there been increase in complaints about or demands for greater broadband access and all? And how are you going to approach this?
Yeah, I think what has happened with COVID-19 is that there is a increased usage of internet, right? Everybody seems to be online today. Even the makcik at home who would have never ordered food for lunch now orders food via Grab. Okay, so that is really something different that we've never seen before. Okay, so what has happened is that more and more people are getting online, and therefore more and more people are being exposed. Okay, so on two fronts. One, they're now online. They want better quality. Okay, and today the quality of service need not necessarily be at the distribution that used to be pre-COVID, because many of us would have been in offices as opposed to being at home during the normal working hours. So therefore, the network is now challenged because it has to do a lot of rebalancing to make sure that the traffic is being balanced properly, so that the quality of service improves. And that is where our biggest challenge is today. We get a lot of complaints, more so on coverage, less on cybersecurity. Okay, a lot on fake news, where people will put a lot of fear into everyone, because as you see, people are now online. They have access to platforms. They think they would like to add their own content into it, and therefore we have to work extra hours to oversee a lot of complaints with regards to questionable content that comes through. So if I were to rank between complaints on connectivity, fake news, fake content, and cybersecurity, at least what comes to our door, it's 1, 2, and 3 in that order.
Okay, thank you. Murari and Abid, you're both speaking from the perspective of big companies where you have your own IT security teams and departments to look into this. The problem is right now a lot of smaller companies, SMEs and all that, have had to introduce work from home policies. They don't have an IT department. Sometimes they don't even have an IT person. Can you give us some ideas or suggestions for them how to approach cybersecurity if they go fully into work from home or even partially into work from home? What are the areas they have to watch out for? You were talking about routers and home networks and all that. That's one. What does your CEO of a small 5-man company do? How should they approach it? The 20-man company, the 100-man company. What are the issues they have to face? Asabi, you are?
Yeah, I think whether you're a large company or a 10 or 100-man company, I think there are certain things that are universally applicable, right? So I would start off with attackers does not discriminate. Basically, they throw a net as wide as possible and catch as many fish as possible. So if we are looking at it from a small, medium enterprise perspective, things that they can do and doesn't cost a lot of money is first and foremost the awareness and education. Simple things on social engineering, because that's where even the big companies, unfortunately, gets trapped, right? So the awareness on phishing, and there's a lot of free material available. Cybersecurity Malaysia, Nexa, all of these agencies, government agencies also provides that. So I think that's what a good start that they should do, because I think that will prevent quite a bit of a problem. Secondly, I think it's more about understanding where are those SMEs quite exposed. So if you're talking about matches ordering through some online platform, that an online platform provider needs to ensure if that's the source of its greatest revenue, make sure that that's protected. So they don't have to do everything, but at least protect that quite strongly. Last but not least, and this is a very small matter, but actually very important matter. A lot of the time, attackers use social engineering techniques. And the simple way to do it, example, is I could phone you at home and say, I'm phoning from your IT help desk. Let me take over your computer. And suddenly you see the mouse cursor moving, and then they are taking over the computer. And you may think that that's stupid or sounds silly, but that's really what happens. So even if you're a small enterprise, having a simple protocol that if your IT help desk calls you, this is the protocol it will follow. If it doesn't follow this, then there's something wrong, will save you and go a long way. So I think I'll pause there because these are some very practical things you can do. Okay.
Murari, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think for a smallish company or an SME, I think the fundamental decision they need to make is, do we buy or do we build, right? Do we buy the capability or build our own? And I think in most cases now the landscape is such that a lot of the products or services one obtains or purchases comes with security in embedded as native capabilities like cloud, for example. So I think definitely buying would be good. However, just to extend on Abid's point as well, I think some of the factors which would sort of apply irrespective of size of company would be that they should never compromise on the cyber hygiene controls, and a lot of these are basic IT controls which have always been there. For example, know what your assets are, know what your connections are, because if you don't know what your attack surface or assets are, you don't know how to protect them, right? I think the second thing is also to ensure that in the event you're buying or building, is the technology life cycle is also very important, because I think a lot of organizations struggle with legacy technology which is not kept up to date, and it becomes very expensive to maintain end of support or end of life systems. And more importantly, a lot of these end of life or end of support systems can't accept, for example, security patches. And that would be my last point. A lot of people talk about the sophistication of cyber attacks and threats, but if you look at the actual vectors they are exploiting, these are basic things which have always been there, right? The end user over email and phishing, exploiting unpatched systems. So I think cyber hygiene is should be maintained at all costs in that sense.
Yeah, most attacks are brute force attacks, and too many people are still using Windows 95 machines, especially in the small and medium enterprise space.
Yeah.
Dr. Fadlullah, I mean, I was just thinking, your team, MCMC, has done tremendous work with the Banania website, where you're debunking a lot of fake news. And this provides a lot of guidance for people. Have you guys considered doing something for cybersecurity in terms of small organizations moving towards a work from home policy environment, guidance on what do you need to do step by step? What are the areas you have to watch out for, and putting it somewhere on your website?
One of the things that we're looking at is that, but just to correct you, today, with regards to the advisory on cybersecurity, there is an organization called the Cybersecurity Malaysia that undertakes that. So the last thing we want to do is to actually duplicate anyone's work. Okay, but certainly we're more than happy to amplify, and we are actually putting together a set of activities undertaken by a variety of agencies within the space of cybersecurity, which we will be announcing soon. The minister did allude to it roughly about a week back that there's this thing that she's going to mention. It's pretty much putting together things that we have done before, things that had been done but probably people didn't quite care about, because at that point in time, cybersecurity is just something like, okay, yeah, fine, cybersecurity. I'm not a tech guy, so I don't care. But today, because people are afraid, so probably it relates to them better, and therefore we're just pulling that all together and putting it out there yet again so that people will understand. So just like we did with Sebenar.my, for a while people thought Sebenar.my is quite dead and gone. But until COVID-19 came about and people started to come up with funny news, be it how to treat COVID-19 and stuff like that. And therefore we had to then ramp up, and I think we went through this truth campaign recently just to get people back on track and to appreciate that fake news is not good news. So likewise for cybersecurity, we will be undertaking the same soon.
Okay, thank you. So, this is the season. Everyone's talking about budget 2021. A lot of areas. There are elements of cybersecurity in budget 2021. We do know that earlier this year, before COVID-19 itself, there were a couple of research reports that shows that we have a lack of cybersecurity experts in this country, and it's quite critical. And, I would like to know, and we'll start with you, Murari, fair warning. What do you think of the budget in terms of cybersecurity and the areas it pays attention to? Where do you think we should focus more attention on? What is missing in budget 2021 in terms of cybersecurity? And not just talking about for businesses, but also for consumers.
Yeah, I think, what I would say is, I would first say that, it's very important that the government has taken the step to set aside some money for cybersecurity. And I think that was recognition that it's important enough that it needs to be addressed. I think what the advice I would give to everyone is that, and when I say that is, all types of organizations, whether it's public sector or private sector, people shouldn't sit back and say that, okay, now it's the government's responsibility, they have the money, they need to go and solve all the cyber issues in the country, right? It's everyone's responsibility, and that the money which is set aside is not the silver bullet, right? So each organization who makes up the entire ecosystem in Malaysia has a role to play. So everybody needs to take the responsibility to assess their risk and set aside the budget. And I think the second thing I would like to stress there is that, again, I think what we need to see more of is actually public and private sector collaboration and information sharing around threats. I think everybody sees different types of attacks, gets different types of threat intelligence. I think it's very important as an ecosystem, public and private sector, there's a lot of more collaboration and information sharing. I think in terms of, focus, I think you brought up a point around the talent issue, right? And I think there's two ways to look at it. So I think from a pipeline or talent pipeline perspective, I think there are already steps being taken, and Standard Chartered has worked with Cybersecurity Malaysia in the past to help with that ecosystem development. And, I'm aware that CSM works with a number of institutions of higher learning in Malaysia to sort of develop that next breed of cybersecurity specialists, targeting various domains within cybersecurity. So that's very good. But I think the challenge remains that that's pipeline, and that will help us solve a problem in the future when we have talent gaps. But I think we have a problem now, and that, really that's where organizations need to be a bit more agile and, look at other options to fill that gap.
Thank you. Abid, I'll go with you, Dr. Fadullah, last, so that you can address some of the points that the two gentlemen bring up.
Yeah, sure.
I think just continuing on Murari's point there, I think it's first of all a good start. It's not the quantity of the amount allocated, but it's the message that's been sent out that cybersecurity is important, the government is taking it important, and it certainly has increased the sort of a spotlight. As you may be aware, recently NEXA also released the cybersecurity strategy for the country. So it's good to see that the various agencies, CSM, NEXA, and Axiata works very closely with all our partners in government agencies and non-government agencies to strengthen the cybersecurity resilience for Malaysia. If you are then looking at in terms of things that, I think the issue about the expertise is not Malaysia specific. I think this is a global issue. I don't think any country can claim that they have produced enough cyber experts to meet the demands. And in a short term at the moment, of course, that issue will continue and then maybe even exacerbate more given the COVID situation and more adoption of digital technologies. So what do we do about it? Similar to what Murari has mentioned, is partnership with the universities. I personally have been to some of the universities, Pacific one, UPNM, and so forth. But I feel that there should be some level of bridging the gap between even the university students coming out. Because the challenge you find in reality is you find the university students come up, they may be university fit, but not really business fit. So it's how do we accelerate and close that gap so they can be more productive from day one. And I think those are some of the programs we're working with some of the agencies on, and some of the even non-government agencies like MDEC, non-profit agencies, sorry, like MDEC, to close this gap. So I think I'll pause there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Fadlullah?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The message on cybersecurity has been mentioned, okay, which is great. In fact, I think the bigger message is that the country is moving down the digital economy at a faster pace as opposed to what it used to talk about, simply because that is probably what's available to the country in trying to get us out of this economic challenge that we are now faced with, okay. And in relation to that, there have been in terms of how much funds are being put aside, again, funds will always be pulled from with varying priorities. There's some amount being made available to CSM, but I think what's missing that people may not realize is that, as pointed out by my two panelists, what is it that we should do as an individual? And actually, there's a lot that we can do. Simply subscribing to protection services, okay, to which that is a form of tax relief that you can actually get under your lifestyle tax relief that you get year in, year out. Most of us don't do that. We use it for some other things. So it's all these tools are already there. What's important is people need to understand the need for cybersecurity, and again, within the organizations, don't just look at the budget per se. Remember, prior to the budget, there was also the announcement on the Prihatin program and the Penjana program, within which both had components of digitalization for the small, medium industries. And again, cybersecurity would be embedded within that availability of that grant for them to use. So again, the funds are being made available. You probably won't get a freebie from the government all the way, but certainly it has made people realize the importance of cybersecurity. There is assistance to some extent for them. And with regards to the workforce, unfortunately, as Abid pointed out, it's a global problem. Okay, we can't resolve it overnight. But one thing I would like to request for most companies, that today technology moves very, very fast. And if you expect students coming out of universities are actually ready to jump into the deep end of the pool, I think we are sadly misguided, because the business requirements differ from one place to another. Levels of adoption is different from one place to another. And when the uni students come out, they are probably not work ready, but they are ready for work. Okay, so, and it is actually the task falls on the businesses to actually quickly train them up during the induction. And this is something that seems to be missing, and it's just not for cybersecurity, but many parts of the disciplines, be it even in management per se. People expect things to just happen just because someone is a graduate. So I think things have moved. We are no longer trained in the discipline that we are trained in, and we get to work in the discipline that we are trained in. We all have to learn to adapt, and therefore companies need to also help build that bridge for that. And lastly, I think I'd like to also touch on the PPP approach, okay, the public-private partnership that Murali, you mentioned about. Yes, I do believe that we probably need to do a lot more engagement. I know NACSA does a fair bit of engagement together with CSM. Question is, do we have a very big group? I remember years ago when internet just came to the fore, and the banking industry just kind of like got around the fact that you can do things online. I used to be in the internet banking task force years ago. And that brought all the banks together with the agencies. I was not with MCMC then, but I was with one of the service providers, and we were there together to kind of like help each other to see where are the gaps and how can we actually help. And I think that's a model Personally, I'll take it on to bring it with an AXA, because under the digital economy that I mentioned about, there is a cluster called infrastructure and data, to which cybersecurity will fall under that. That is chaired by the Minister of Communications and Multimedia, YB Saifuddin. So we're certainly working on that score, and I'll probably call upon my two panelists here to be involved in that just as well. Can't get any better people to get information and ideas from. Thanks.
Right. Great to hear that. I'm going to ask something about your own personal opinion, Dr. Falula. Given a choice between putting effort into producing more cybersecurity experts or making everyone more cybersecurity aware, where would you balance it? I mean, which do you think is more important?
Personally, I think the second is more important. Everybody should be aware about cybersecurity, as opposed to getting more experts. The reality is you will never be able to fulfill the demand side, okay? But you can certainly manage the demand. And therefore, if people are all aware and everybody takes their own responsibility, I'm quite sure we will see a lesser amount of threat out there. I mean, let me just take an example. House crime, or rather house break-ins. Do we expect to see more police outside our house, or should we manage our own house as best as possible to reduce the possibility of a house break-in? And certainly, we need to also take responsibility by making sure our doors are locked, our windows are closed when we're not home, possibly put an alarm just to, not so much to prevent them from coming in, from thieves from coming in, but actually is to deter them. So therefore, we will, I think, spending money wisely. If I have only 10 ringgit, I'll spend on making sure people will be more aware about cybersecurity.
Yeah, I get your point. It's cybersecurity is not about making sure you're never attacked, but making sure you're not an attractive target.
Absolutely.
There's someone else who's more easier to break into.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go a bit individual and attack some of our guests here. So we'll start with you, Abid. Axiata. As you know, in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of, especially since the massive data leak from about 2 years ago, a lot of people are complaining about increased scam calls, phishing attacks, like you pointed out as well, and they all feel that it comes from the leakage of their personal data and numbers. Can you give us a brief rundown of what the telco industry has done to shore up its defenses and make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
So I think if you take 3 years ago, there's a lot of things that have evolved globally. And there's a lot of best practices that are starting to settle in. Some of the things that I can share openly is adoption of a world-leading global framework like NIST, which has been utilized not just by Axiata, but I have good relationships with the CISOs in let's say financial services, the head of CISO in Barclays based out of in US and so forth. So those adoption of this framework and adopting the maturity year on year, increasing that is number one, because that puts us in a same level playing field with our global competitors. Again, I think going back to our MCMC chairman, Dr. Falula's view, that this is not just about cybersecurity. This is about building that digital trust and in building the digital economy. So we got to get that going. Because if Malaysia wants to be a competitive economy, which is digitally progressive, we got to make sure we're sort of going above and beyond just understanding basic cyber hygiene, right? So that's number one. Number two, it was really around driving the tone from the top. So again, if I echo back Dr. Falula's words, it's no more just purely an IT issue. So historically, whenever you talk about cybersecurity, it's always some guy in IT in a back office, you must go and sort it out. Why are you bothering me with this? If you look at where the organizations are, and I can personally speak about Axiata, and if you look at our annual financial reports, there's been a lot of focus. We spent significant amount of resources, management time in discussing this, as far as going to say that even our group CEO, Tan Sri Jamaluddin's personal KPI has got cybersecurity that's been driven by the board. And all the CEOs that are in our operating companies have cybersecurity as a KPI. So I think that's similar to Cybersecurity Malaysia's budget announcement by the minister. it sets the right tone. It gives that sort of impression that we are, to the ordinary employee and everybody in a company, that cybersecurity is important. And obviously setting up policies, governance structures. So a lot has evolved since the 2017 breach that you are talking about. Last but not least is collaboration again. So if you look at, because I don't think, my personal view, no one company has answers and are able to defend all the cyber attacks that come to them and all the solutions that are out there. So strong collaboration. If I again go back to using the Axiata's experience over the last 3 years, we have signed formal MOUs with MDEC, Cybersecurity Malaysia, Nexa. Located from a global context, we are the first and only telco to be part of the first alliance, which allows us to understand what the threats are. So I think being part of the global search and understanding what is happening, using that knowledge to protect the country and the customers, I think those are some of the developments that I feel has better positioned us now than where we were 3 years ago. Thank you.
Murari, banking. Now everyone is going to have to go digital banking, online banking. I'm pretty sure has gone up since the pandemic began. Can you tell us about what, as a consumer or a company, customers have to watch out for when they start going more fully into digital banking? What steps should they take, especially small businesses, to make sure that there's no breach or anything?
Yeah, I think I'll start first with the company's perspective, right? So I think one of the things which has sort of changed, pre-COVID and now, is the scale and acceleration in terms of the technology we are landing, whether it be to our consumers or within the company to the employees itself. And I think our mantra has always been how do we safely deliver that acceleration and scale. And I think why that's important is that we've had to change our ways of working within security teams. Gone are the days where we have the time and luxury to sit down and review projects, review initiatives, and take our time to assess them and provide the approval. Everything is a matter of minutes or days or hours, in fact, right? So I think we've had to deliver a lot of automation in our ways of working to be able to meet that scale and digital transformation. So that's one. I think from a consumer perspective, I think especially with Standard Chartered, we are in countries where we've been for hundreds of years, right? So I think a lot of older people very comfortable going to the branches, and suddenly they have to pivot to the online channels, and they're not even digital savvy or digital aware. So I think more to be done on educating these end users around the risks on using digital banking. I think the other thing which has happened is definitely a lot of heightened monitoring around our attack surface or external infrastructure like our VPN connectivities. So that's something which has happened, and I think increase in the amount of simulations we're doing or drills around are we ready when we get attacked, right? And what are the different ways we can be attacked, and to ensure that our processes and our responses are well oiled in nature. And that includes not just targeting IT or technology teams, but also business teams and even the board of directors, right? So and that includes areas such as ransomware, right? Because I think ransomware attacks and breaches have taken place at a worrying scale. But something like ransomware involves the whole organization, especially around decision-making rights. Are we going to pay the ransom or not pay the ransom? That's not a IT manager's decision or CISO's decision. That sits with the board. So they need to be educated and aware of the risk. And when we run these simulations, you realize there are other things involved. For example, with ransomware, are we going to hire a professional negotiator? Have we set aside money to do that, to negotiate the ransom? If we're going to pay the ransom, do we actually have a Bitcoin account? Because it's not a matter of transferring cash. You got to pay in Bitcoin. So my point there is, when we run these simulations, it's very important to do so, because then you sort of pick out these things which you haven't thought about before, which is on paper, and it sort of allows the organizations to actually be more well-oiled and fast in their response to contain any breaches as much as possible. So these are some of the things we've seen changing, more awareness to the consumer, definitely, where they're not comfortable or not digitally savvy, more heightened monitoring, and definitely more simulation to enhance the preparedness in the case of any attacks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fadullah. I have a very quick question before we open the floor for our or rather the matrix for questions from the audience. You've seen budget. Going back a bit to the budget, but in the wake of the budget 2021 announcement, one of the ministers also said they are looking at reviewing the cyber laws in this country. You know, I mean, we go back to the Computer Crimes Act, it's 1998, 1996 or something.
Yep.
When you meet the minister personally, what advice do you give him? What are the areas and weaknesses in our cyber laws that need to be plugged?
We always think that the moment we go online, it's kind of like a new world. In reality, it's just an extension of the existing world with a little bit of tweaking here and there. So the laws that we have today, example, our PDPA, our Communications Multimedia Act, Computer Crimes, Penal Code, and a few other acts within the security ambit, it's already there. The question is, are these acts fit for the period that we are in today? Example, some of the acts may be technology agnostic, but the penalty as a result of any contravention of such act is not punitive enough. Okay, sometimes you get a fine of 10,000 ringgit. Hey, no biggie. I'll just pay and I'll move on. So things like that will have to be looked at. And even for CMA, our act was gazetted way back in the year it was crafted in 1998. So that's 22 years down the road. And I'm quite sure internet wasn't what it used to be in 1998 as what it is today. And therefore, a lot of things are happening. So when my conversation with not just my minister, but with a few other ministers is that we probably need to sit back, revisit what are the new challenges that we see in cybersecurity. Look at whether we can, do we need new add-ons or amendments to the law, number one. Probably not to create a new law, because to try to create a new law will just take us a good 2 years down the road. And you know, by then, the technology that we are debating about today will have moved on to a different technology, and it might still not be fit for purpose. But the existing laws are there. We can certainly tighten that, and that is something that they are looking at. They have also talked about creating a commission for cybersecurity. Whether that will be something that will happen or not, again, we need to revisit how all these acts come into play. Because many of the times the acts falls on different agencies, and to you and I as a consumer, we're totally confused. Do I go to the police? Do I go to MCMC? Do I go to CSM? Do I go to the domestic and trade? Sometimes I just don't know who do I go to, and guess what? I'll just stay at home and complain and complain and complain.
On social media, rather. Huh?
So that will happen. So this is something that we have to deal with, and the lending will probably not be so soon, but certainly the conversation is happening as we talk about. And like I said, having the Digital Economy Council chaired by the Prime Minister shapes the discussions that we need to do, and also shapes the areas that we need to refine to make sure that when we do get on board that whole big ship called digital economy, we are all better fit to actually make sure that the country moves in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Digital citizens, yeah? Okay, we have opened the floor for questions. Please, if you have any questions for the gentleman, you won't get them again on the same stage or on the same screen for a while. We are open to questions from the audience. If you guys have anything to ask, now's the time. Don't be shy. We can't see you. Okay. While we are waiting for questions to come in, can you name one example, Dr. Fadullah, that you'd like to see a change in terms of the cyber laws in this country? One small, you spoke about punitive measures, so the quantum of punishment was much less than 10,000 ringgit 20 years ago. Was very different from 10,000 ringgit today, right? What other change would you like to see? Or what do you think is one key element that you'd like to immediately tackle?
Okay. When you talk about security and trying to regulate, what's important is we must have the ability to regulate. Okay. Today, we have a lot of applications over the top, we call them. And many of them are offering it from out of the country, and many of them are not licensed. And when someone complains, say, MCMC, please take action. How can we? Because they do not fall under our laws. Okay, so one of the things that I think we are actually pushing hard is to revisit that law under the Communications and Multimedia Act. How can we actually license people who are serving nations? How do we then protect nations? Some countries have taken on what they call as a deeming license, which means anyone who serves one citizen of a country via online is deemed to be licensed in the country that the citizen is in. Okay, so that way it's kind of a hook. It's not perfect, but at the very least, the law actually has an ability to reach out to those who are serving nations out of Malaysia. So that's something that we would like to see.
It's a very jurisdictional issue, right?
Yeah.
We have one question. Nurul is asking, what are the simple steps we can do to develop a security culture in the organization, especially amongst non-technical people, beyond just awareness training? I think, Murali, can you answer that? Can you take this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the traditional way of improving awareness and education needs to definitely change, and we have taken steps as well. I think the traditional approach has been when people don't complete like an e-learning, for example. We always call them out, right? Report them to the line manager. And I think what we need to change is, rather than penalize people for just bad security behavior, we also incentivize good security behavior, right? Because that will motivate people to actually behave in the manner they're supposed to if you actually incentivize it. And you can do simple things like, building league tables on, which is the best performing department in terms of security awareness and culture. Definitely something like, making, a lot of organizations have mandatory e-learning, which is largely centered around code of conduct and ethics, to extend that to cybersecurity and make that mandatory. And also, try and look at embedding those into people's job objectives. So these are some of the ways to do it, but I think definitely moving away from just penalizing bad behavior, but incentivizing good behavior is definitely a positive step forward, and you can see the culture change with that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fadullah. Back to you. Kevin has this question. I'm not sure if I understand correctly, so I'm going to paraphrase the question. How does Malaysia plan to juggle between cross-border data sharing benefits versus security? And a lot of services, like you brought up, the whole issue of jurisdictions and all that. So how does Malaysia plan to juggle the challenges between?
I think that for that question, I doubt any country actually has an answer. All right. Okay. But certainly we have to balance. There's a lot of benefit on cross-border data sharing. Nobody's going to say no to that. Okay. But at the same time, the data that we are sharing belongs to someone. And that someone happens to be it an organization or an individual in the country. Now, how do we then protect that? Okay. So therefore, when you look at from that angle, there is always a need to make sure that there is a form of protection by way of law. And like in all laws, it always stops at the border. Okay. So there will be two levels of, if you want, approach that Malaysia should undertake. One, what's within our border, we need to protect people within our border. Number one. Number two, while we acknowledge that the cross-data sharing is important, there will always be a G2G arrangement between countries. Okay, and therefore, again, you have the trade agreements that we all have, and invariably, the trade agreements will take into account data sharing, because that would probably be the way that most economies will go towards in the future.
Okay, thank you. Got one final question, I guess, because it's, time's up. So this one I'm going to paraphrase because it's a long question. And I think this one goes to MCMC, but our friend from Abid from Axiata probably wants to add in. A lot of questions. I mean, going back to, again, scam calls coming in. There are unauthorized messages that come in. People block them or complain about them. The numbers we know belong to a scammer. But share from our audience asks, why isn't the network operators doing something more? Why are these numbers still in circulation? Why are these people allowed to make calls? from MCMC and say, how can we stop this? And what do network operators need to do? And then Amit can answer about what you guys are doing. Dr. Fadullah first.
Okay, I think what is most important is this. Okay, people assume that phone numbers are the purview of the cellular operators. Okay, they are not. Many of us are quite happy to give our data to other organizations. I give you an example. I go down to a supermarket and suddenly they say, okay, you spend this amount of money. Would you like to enter a contest because you could win a Tesla? Yay, I'll put in all my information there and I wouldn't know what happens to that information. Okay, so, and within the information, there will be phone numbers. So one, we are quite happy to give our numbers away, and therefore that gives us, that provides room for people to use that data to scam. Second, there is also a problem with regards to prepaid data registration. Okay, I think the news today, I think for the last couple of days, has focused on the efforts done by the Nation Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, where telco employees together in cahoots with others have actually found a way to get numbers. And at the same time, the way prepaid numbers are being registered too has been lax to some extent, and therefore we are also taking enforcement. So again, like I said, the problem of numbers do not just stem from one source, it is from a variety of sources. And what I would advise to people, number one, if you don't recognize the number, don't respond. Okay, and if these numbers are being used on platforms such as WhatsApp or Telegram, if you do not know them, just block. Okay, and if something gets through to you, then certainly do not follow what they ask you to do. Okay, as a bit certainly. All right, so don't be so gullible. And last but not least, do make a police report. Okay, so that when you have the data of reports, it allows the authorities to actually undertake investigation. Because without a report, by law, no enforcement agency can undertake any further investigation.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to answer?
I think you've covered most of the points. The one point that I would add again to this is this challenge is not just in Malaysia. I mean, if you're following the telco developments, even in US, with even most advanced spam blocking, even there was a strict guidance coming from FTC, and they're still having this issue. It's simply because, as the chairman rightly pointed out, some of the issues stem out from some of the platforms that are global platforms, social media platforms that have been compromised historically. And that data is easily available to anybody in the public, actually. So for me as a scammer, to get your details today is very, very easy. I mean, if you can just go to a simple website called Have I Been Pawned, put in your email address, it will immediately tell you whether you've been compromised or not. And, you know, I can share with my personal story here. It's really scary. My 13-year-old daughter knows this website. She put my private email address and says, Daddy, you've been hacked. So you are the cybersecurity expert. How did you get hacked? And then I said to her, okay, you know, why don't you go down and see what happened? And obviously, I'm not going to mention the social media companies, but those companies were compromised. And unfortunately, I was part of that social media professional network. And so my details, no matter what I do in my personal life, were compromised too. So I think there is an element of that. And of course, there's an element of things that we got to fix. And we're working tirelessly on fixing that too. So I think it's not one simple answer. And I think there's a combination of collaboration between ourselves, the regulators, the technology providers to sort these issues out. But as you should be aware that a lot of the times regulation is not always the answer because the scammers obviously are more creative and can move at a faster pace than regulation can ever. So if we are thinking that regulation is answer to all your problems, then I think to me personally, it's not the way you should look at it. So I think I'll pause there, but hopefully there gives some context.
Okay, thank you. We have just one last question then, and this one's for you, Murari, from Kochi. What has Standard Chartered done to assure stakeholders within the bank and Bank Negara that moving to the cloud does not mean increasing the risk for cybersecurity attacks or data loss? And what about the question of data sovereignty?
Yeah, so I think we've done a lot, but in the interest of time, I think the important thing is that firstly, I think any organization should have a clear sort of strategy around cloud adoption. What exactly they're moving to the cloud, and my recommendation would be take baby steps in that. Potentially, not moving business critical systems or those which hold, for example, PII data for a start. So take baby steps. So potentially, leverage more infrastructure or platforms for development or development environments first. So I think that needs to be very clear in terms of what exactly is the organization's cloud adoption strategy. In terms of managing the risks and the compliance aspects of it, I think one thing everyone needs to be very clear of. If you were to go and partner with someone like an AWS or Azure or GCP or Google Cloud Platform, it is a shared responsibility model, right? Moving stuff to the cloud doesn't mean the cloud provider takes on full responsibility for security. And a lot of these providers have very clear indication of what the responsibilities they take on and what the organization needs to take on. So I think understanding those responsibilities is very clear. We also have in place that before anything gets onboarded to the cloud, and I'm talking, all flavors of cloud, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform, or even software as a service, it goes through an extremely robust cloud governance process and onboarding process to assess not only the security risks but also the legal and compliance risks as well. So that process cannot be bypassed and has to be followed. And every cloud adoption we go through has to go through that process. So I think putting that in place was very important. And also doing a constant survey of the landscape to see, because this is the enforcement and compliance bit, to ensure that no one has bypassed the process and actually gone and signed up with a software as a service, for example, in that sense. So I think that's really that. I think when it comes to data sovereignty, I think, when you're going and hosting data in the cloud, you have to be very clear on where exactly, a lot of the cloud providers have multiple data hosting locations. So you need to ask the question when you're onboarding, where exactly is my data being stored, right? Because where the relationship may be managed from, say, for example, Malaysia, so the relationship manager might be there, but your data might actually be in a data center somewhere else. And on that also, I mean, besides where the data is being hosted, a lot of cloud providers actually sign on with other partners to deliver services to them. So, you move from third party to what I consider fourth party relationships. So even when you find out where the data is being stored, ask the question, are you working with another partner? Because remember, your legal relationship is directly with the cloud provider, and you got to ensure that your legal rights extend to beyond the third party. It's sometimes challenging in negotiations. So these are the kind of things you need to go in eyes wide open with any sort of arrangements, ask the questions up front, put in a very strong governance and onboarding process. And more importantly, I would say, define what that cloud adoption strategy is and take what I consider baby steps to fully understand what you're signing up for before you start moving production data workloads or, systems which host personal data, onto the cloud.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to give, since Murari, you had the last word in, I'm going to give an opportunity to Abid and Dr. Fadlullah here. Abid, would you like to just sum up or?
No, I think you have, thank you for the opportunity, first of all, and thank you for everybody joining us on the call. If you have anything else, our website has all the information that you need. You can personally reach out to me with any Aziata or cybersecurity related matters. Happy to help. Stay safe, and let's keep cyber safe too, and COVID pandemic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Farullah, would like to add anything?
Yeah, thank you all. Only one last piece of advice: stay safe online, stay safe offline.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's a good way to sign off. So I'm not going to say anything else. Bye, gentlemen. Thank you.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that morning power panel session for re-engineering security in the next normal. We are now about to enter into the second thematic track of the day, the drone track, which is complemented by OFO Technology, a Malaysian-based leading unmanned aerial system, UAS, solution expert, catering various engineering, intelligence, and industrial applications in numerous sectors. And to open the session, our speaker from OFO Tech will share with us the limitless potential of drone-powered solutions and its vast applications for broad key economic sectors. The speaker will also draw relevance in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Business Development Director of OFO Tech, Mr. Muhammad Amshah Faiz.
Thank you, Myra, for that warm welcome. Hi, my name is Amshah Faiz, Business Development Director for OFO Tech. For those of you who do not know, OFO Tech is a multi-award winning technology innovations company and a leading drone service provider in Malaysia and in the region. So in conjunction with Star Media's Digital X Data event, I would like to share with our fellow viewers an in-depth overview of the potential application of drone-powered solutions in both commercial and civilian use cases. Ladies and gentlemen, you see, the problem is when people talk about drones, the popular misconception is that it is merely limited to taking aerial footage and aerial images. However, what I would like to emphasize is that when we combine key IR 4.0 technologies, including but not limited to artificial intelligence, big data analytics, augmented and virtual reality, and even industrial IoT technology, what we get is robust end-to-end systems with tremendous disruptive potential for many sector applications, effectively being a game changer for the industry landscape in large. So for the next minute, I will show you an example of how this actually can add benefit through commercial industries with the combination for both project monitoring and asset management purposes. Because the reality is market projections expect that the industry is about to grow anywhere from 60 billion US dollars up to 127 billion US dollars in the year 2025. So pretty much this indicates that the industry is going to be quite huge for all the commercial sectors that I have mentioned. If you see in the screen in front, these indicate the sectors currently that are already have integrated drone technology in their everyday SOPs. These include, but not limited to, the infrastructure construction sector, agriculture, plantation, transportation, security, mining, telecommunication, insurance, even entertainment and media. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize that the application is not necessarily limited to these sectors specifically. In fact, it's just limited to our creativity and the new areas in which we want to implement it. As we speak, in fact, there are steadily new use cases being developed, R&D development, as well as research to find new applications for drone-powered solutions. As we speak, I want you to understand that the combination of drones is only a component of the entire spectrum of key IR 4.0 technology systems. So I want to share with you the critical 4 pillars of drone system workflow methodology. This is the most important part of the presentation, ladies and gentlemen. If there's anything you would take away from my presentation, I hope it will be this. So we start up with the 4 pillars, beginning off with data acquisition. which the name implies. This means collecting data. Data can come in many formats, both unstructured and structured. We are talking about health records, financial transaction, or even social media feeds can constitute data. But in our case, we are specifically focusing on images. So we can collect image from multiple acquisition platforms, not necessarily using drones. We can have that even scaled to using satellite imagery, radar, and other forms of sensors. But the key objective is, once we've collected the data, we move to the second pillar, which is data processing. We stitch the data, calibrate, and clean the data into necessary outputs, such as reality mesh and 3D point cloud imagery. So that we move to the third pillar, which is data analysis. We extract information, analyze the data, make assessments, so on and so forth. And the final pillar is data platform. As the name implies, this enables clients or industries to effectively manage that data information in an online single viewing platform, and also enabling them to present that data to their clients or their stakeholders. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that the terminologies that I'm using are quite technical, but do not fear. I will go through them so that you can have a better understanding of the visuals and the real world application. So we start off with the first data pillar. I will give you a quick run through. It begins off with data acquisition. So data acquisition, for your information, drones can come in many forms, whether it is multi-rotor, whether it's a fixed wing, or even the marriage of both two, vertical takeoff landing propulsion system. But irrespective of what form the drone comes in, at the end of the day, the drone is just a flying object. So it's not the drone that matters, it's the payload sensor. So speaking of data, depending on the client's requirement, we will use the specific sensors required, whether it's a RGB camera, whether it's a multispectral, hyperspectral, thermal camera, so on and so forth. Each respective industries has their own problem statements, and suitable to our client's requirements, we will be using the specific sensors required. But of course, talking about data, if it's inaccurate, it's pretty much useless, and hence why we deploy other forms of equipment such as GCPs, ground control points, just to maintain that level of accuracy and precision in our data output. Second pillar is data processing. So once we've collected the data using the various capturing methods, we will process it, stitch it, and calibrate the data into outputs such as reality mesh or 3D point cloud imagery. So just to give you an example, in this video, we set an example for the environmental sector. As you know, climate change is a big issue for global. Even Malaysia is no exception. As we know, when it rains, flooding and landslides tend to occur at frequent rates. So what we want to do is effectively digitalize and enable clients, whether it's city municipal councils, local, federal government, even private landowners, to manage these disasters in a much more effective manner. So if you see an example in front of the screen, as you notice, the difference between satellite and drone imagery, it's up to 10 to 30 times better in resolution. So for our clients, it's just a matter of clicking into this GIS base map. They will click on that particular location, and automatically all the necessary information will be displayed, including coordinates, as well as the last date of report, etc., etc. Some images, so you can get a better feel. But of course, anyone can come up with footage and images. We want to go beyond that, but just to give you a better feel of the situation on ground. So this is actually one of the worst landslides located in north of Malaysia. As you notice, the size of two human beings on top, if you guys can see. This gives you a little scale of the sheer magnitude or the devastation of the landslide that you see. You notice that there are residential houses situated nearby. Of course, the residents have been evacuated, but still, this situation is not any what any homeowner would like to fathom. I mean, property prices fall, so on and so forth. So facing this situation, obviously the people in charge would have to do the necessary rectification measure, whether build a wall, build a fence. But to send people there alone is so dangerous. So we want to eliminate the entire human risk factor. So the beauty of our operations is that when we capture using our drones, we will simulate the entire location into what we call a 3D point cloud imagery, as you see. So with this system, we enable clients to be online at the comfort of their own office to make all the necessary measurements, including length, distance, in this case 17.58 meters. Let's say how much raw concrete or cement is required. Easy. Same application. We will just set up the boundary and determine the area for how much resources required. In this case, 676.5 meters squared. Of course, this is the landslide. What use is it if we do not know what the slope measurements are? So similar application, as you scroll down, you notice you just set up the perimeter and you scroll down and you will see the coordinates X, Y, and Z provided, and also a 2D profile of the location. So this actually enables our clients to be best assured of the location without them being on site themselves. So at any point at the historical phase they would like to view, they have it on archive, so they can already view it without having to necessarily go to the place manually. So other applications aside from environmental is agriculture plantation. So let's say our clients own land remotely. They are located in KL, so they own land, let's say in Sabah, Sarawak. So similar application, what we want to do is enable them to remotely manage that asset. So you notice in this GIS-based map, in the same data set, we enable, after capturing with our drones, to extract multiple information from the same data, and also enabling our clients to manipulate the information, and also integrating artificial intelligence to actually calculate how many trees they are, effectively automating the process, and also integrating IoT sensors to be able to determine key parameters, the soil moisture, pH value, ambient temperature, so on and so forth. We can also reform the data set to become a 3D point cloud imagery, enabling our clients to extract all the topographical feature information as was displayed and presented momentarily just now. So this is just a little idea of what you can expect when it comes to 3D point cloud or the processing. We are still at the second pillar, ladies and gentlemen. Now moving to the third pillar, which is data analytics. What we do is drone-powered solution, integrating it with AI capabilities. So artificial intelligence, what we want to do is machine learning techniques or computer vision using aerial images. So in our case, we are in heavy industry. So what we do is we want to automate processes for operation and maintenance. For example, critical asset infrastructure, bridges, ports, highways. We want to automate the process to determine asset damages, whether it's rust, leakages, surface cracks, any form of asset disrepair. We can enable the drones to be able to capture using the artificial intelligence algorithms. Of course, different industries have different problem statements. So you see in this example, it's for the oil and gas sector. So we send down the drones, so anything that the human eye can capture, our system can deliver the same level of accuracy and precision to determine the asset damages that are available or scattered throughout the client's asset. So in this particular example, it involves eliminating human risk factor. You see, this is a swampy area. So crocodiles infest the area. So instead of having to send manual labor, we can easily automate process and send drones. So this is something that I just want, ladies and gentlemen, our dear viewers, to keep in mind that in the future, don't be surprised when such technology is going to be predominant in our everyday lives. For other applications, let's say more civilian context is probably smart traffic monitoring. So imagine whatever can be captured using cameras can already be scaled using the multiple IR 4.0 technologies. So for smart city applications, let's say to determine how many cars are going in and out of the city, we can tap not only into drone technology, even the standard CCTV installation suffices. But once having captured the number of cars going in and out of the city, we can enable city councils to understand congestion periods for reroute optimization during rush hours. But of course, we can go even beyond that to determine, to zoom into the plate number, determine the age of the car, and actually get average computation of the CO2 output that is produced. So for smart city applications, this is quite interesting for us to know actually how much CO2 output has been produced, not just for civilian, but also for industries. So of course, this is the similar example for car count. You notice the yellow line on the right. So any object, any vehicle that passes, notice the line on the top left in front of the screen will take into consideration. But bear in mind, as I've mentioned, this is not just limited to one particular application. This is just limited to our creativity and how we want to have that skill. For example, whether this one to be applied for river pollution monitoring, how much garbage waste disposal is being flowing down the river stream, or even for border and security to detect illegal entry or abnormalities, illegal smuggling, so on and so forth. So this can easily be scaled using the various technology platforms that I've mentioned. So other applications that we integrate, too many, as I've mentioned. As we speak, there are many new use case studies, R&D development in this particular application. So not necessarily limited to drones. If you see on the screen, the top 3 videos, you notice this is for industry settings. Let's say for personal protective equipment. For modern industries, they would have to, in their SOPs, they would have to have site supervisors on site continuously to make sure that their vendors are compliant in terms of the security the safety equipments, such as helmets, gloves, even boots, or even their harness hook. So instead of having a site supervisor monitor compliance, we want to automate the process, tap into the live CCTV stream, and actually have our AI algorithms monitor compliance. So for example, when there is a detection of any form of breach, there will be an alert sent to our site supervisor's phone. So instead of him being on site, he can be at the office monitoring multiple sites to indicate, to tell him that there has something, a non-conformity issue has occurred. So let's think of this in our current context, which is what? COVID and the pandemic. So we can easily have that scaled to, let's say, to detect face masks, social distancing, etc., etc. So as I've mentioned, the technology application is unending to that respect, whether we want to apply it for commercial, civilian, or even heavy industries. The bottom video indicates or illustrates the many applications for industries, whether it's a detection for asset damage, for operation and maintenance, whether it's for oil and gas sector, construction, mining, or any other form of critical asset infrastructure in Malaysia and abroad. So other forms, let's say to monitor against any form of illegal activity, smoking in oil and gas stations, or even having that scaled to public and private government buildings, airport, KLIA, Sunway, Pyramid, like shopping malls, just to have them manage or secure, have deep analytical systems integrated, automating the entire process. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to the final pillar, which is data platform. So as the name implies, data platform enables our clients to effectively manage all that information on online single viewing platform. So as long as they have good internet connectivity, they are able to access all the information of their data on any media device, whether it's laptop, iPad, or even iPhone. So another feature that we integrate is augmented reality, or AR. For our young viewers, I'm pretty sure you are very familiar with what AR is. So this pretty much is broadly used in gaming, but the application is increasingly being used in other applications as well. For example, in our case, for asset management, for presentation purposes, let's say the landslide that I've previously demonstrated. Now in a team, they want to monitor or discuss this amongst their team members. So instead of having them go on site, or instead of having to verbally communicate, what we want to do is simulate the entire subject matter, in this case, the landslide, in an AR format. So we effectively have put the location on the table in front of everyone. So this effectively enables our clients to visualize, to facilitate better presentation and communication purposes, so on and so forth. So this is the gap that we are trying to fill in before the generation of Iron Man or Star Wars is coming in. So other applications, of course, for marketing, for insurance, as you see, very iconic building, Menara TM. So we can have easily any form of building captured and simulated in an AR format, whether we want to do this for insurance, to inspection condition of a building, etc., etc. For marketing, for city, municipal council management, irrelevant. It can be easily be applied for whatever clients require. So notice, this is not just drone technology in particular. This is a combination of the multi spectrum of technologies for us to be enabled to monitor, analyze, process the information effectively for our clients. So you see in front of you, this example is Bandar Shah Alam. So we've effectively put partial parts of the city in front. So for city municipal councils to manage, you see in this new, well, interesting times, we have flooding, we have all sorts of urban congestion. So this form of a system can actually help people in order for them to visualize, in order for them to manage and plan much more better. So other applications are many. So up to our viewers of how you want to implement it, so on and so forth. So for example, this is for architect, for the construction industry. As you notice, this is a school premise. So what they want to do is build a new building. So what we want to do is facilitate the architects to be able to envision the output of the building. So as you notice, we easily erase the location and superimpose a 3D animated version of a building to see how the end result would manifest itself. As mentioned, planning, management, this is something very useful for the application to be used for heavy industries, to monitor, inspect the condition of the equipment, critical components, so on and so forth as well. So for that, I believe, just like to recap the entire 4 pillars. Bear in mind, we're talking from data acquisition, data processing, data analytics, and data management. So for most drone companies, understand that it's the combination of all. So most companies are merely limited to the first two pillars, which is data acquisition and data processing. When it comes to the final two pillars, data analytics and data management, that's actually what differentiates a high-end or high-profile AI-driven drone company. So these are just amongst the potential that the systems can be used, whether for commercial, civilian, or even military use cases. So I believe that there are questions from our panel. So I would love to have them addressed.
Hi, can I call you Faiz? Okay, cool, Faiz. Yeah, so before we go through the questions, I think that was a very interesting presentation. I think there's a wide range of ways in which you can use the technology. I think as an average person like myself, what I usually associate with drone technology is in warfare, right? But let's talk a little bit about the kind of concerns that are surrounding drone technology, maybe a little bit. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, I guess, data protection. If you're going to use this to, like, for example, we're surveilling systems, but can this technology be used to surveil people? And what kind of things can you put in place to protect privacy, in your opinion?
That's a great question. Thank you very much. Actually, for information, drones, the technology has been widely available since the 1980s, but why has it only been applied for commercial sector is pretty much, as you've mentioned, due to regulatory privacy security concerns. In fact, like GPS technology, internet, drones came from the military sector before it has been scaled to commercial applications because it's the most logical thing to do. But the reason why it's not widely implemented as fast as industry players would like it to be is due to concerns of privacy, security, so on and so forth. So when you ask me, what can we do in order to maintain that level of protection for our clients, certainly government agencies need to be involved. This is not going to be a silo attempt. This will be a multi-agency initiative. The respective agencies such as Department of Civil Aviation, the Department of Mapping, MCMC, certainly. So industries players also have to comply with a certain standard. But what I think at the end of the day, it comes to awareness. I mean, if people don't know, I mean, the general public do not know anything about drones, how can they actually understand of what the implications are? So with that in mind, once we've created mass awareness of drone applications and its potential risks, pros and cons, then we'll be able to make the necessary step forward in implementing a structured framework to actually guarantee all the things that you've mentioned in terms of privacy and security is well safeguarded. But of course, this is not an issue confined to one particular country. In fact, this is a global issue currently. Not only drones, I mean, other key technology platforms also. Because if you are talking about drone transportation delivery, I mean, imagine that's going to have an even further impact in our everyday lives, how we communicate, how we live. It will be changed. So yes, definitely something that we have to think in covering.
Yeah,
Hope that answers it.
Oh, yeah, it does. Actually, thank you so much for bringing it up. I think it will dissuade a lot of fears surrounding the issue, because it is, like, even though it's not new technology, I think it's gotten kind of like a bad name. But I like the fact that now we're using this for commercial gains, and as you've mentioned through your presentation, that we can use it for really good things like disaster management, for landslides, and also when you mentioned the drone delivery system, right? So I mean, most of the things that we've talked about is like using visuals, right? But maybe you can expand on that idea of like drone delivery systems, and also maybe I'm wondering how much all of this kind of costs average. Yeah. So Faiz, take it away.
Great question. So drone delivery, transportation. So this can imply many things from delivering food, packages, but how it started off initially was through the delivery of first aid equipment to rural, hard-to-access areas such as Africa or Latin America. So in our current context, COVID, drone delivery, there is a logical perspective for us to actually implement the system. for the last mile delivery of critical first aid. Because you see, there are areas that are still, as we speak, hard to access with lack of infrastructure, access to rural roads, so on and so forth. So I believe that drone delivery is going to be something, hopefully in the near future, is going to be something that's going to be quite predominant, subject to the regulatory environments that being addressing the issue in a comprehensive manner.
Yeah, I like that idea actually, especially in like Southeast Asia and ASEAN countries where there are vast amount of lands and it's difficult to access certain areas. And there are poverty areas. I think it's nice as well. Okay. Oh, sorry. So before I get carried away, so you have a question here from Shahrul. Thank you, Shahrul. Can drones be used for gas detection in utilities in a utilities company? Faiz?
Oh, thank you, Shahrul, for that question. Yes, definitely. So basically, the drone is a flying robot. So all it does is fly. So the payload is what matters. So irrespective of what it is that you want to capture, we will be using the specific sensors suitable. So in your question, it's gas detection. So you can easily have a sensor input on the payload to detect methane levels at oil and gas stations, platforms, whether offshore and onshore. Definitely, there are multiple applications, whether we want to use LiDAR, multispectral, hyperspectral, scaled throughout industries, actually. Yes, for more information, yeah, definitely you can follow STAR and Ofotech to get the critical key industry insights.
Thank you, Faiz. Thank you, Faiz, for the shout out to Star. Actually, that's a good point as well, and it can decrease the amount of human collateral damage. Since gas is harmful to human beings as well, drones can do the job for us. I think we have another question. Yes. Okay. So we have one question from Wong. What are the threats, weaknesses, or things we need to be aware of when using drone technology?
Well, everything has pros and cons, to be honest. But I'm aware that there are a lot of threats surrounding drone technology. But of course, we have to counterbalance the pros and cons. Currently, for industry context, it's very disruptive, so it enables them to have better cost structures, especially when we're talking about current economic volatilities. Every company would like to look for additional ways of cost saving. So drone, in that particular sense, actually fills that gap. But of course, there are weaknesses. Privacy, security. I do apologize, Wong, but as we speak, there's not. There are things that we are currently trying to do. I mean, the regulatory in Malaysia agencies are doing solid work on that. We have laws regulating it. For example, we're not allowed to fly in areas with assembly of 1,000 people, nowhere close to government buildings. Putrajaya is strictly off limits, airports, so on and so forth. But just to have you understand, what you need to be aware is drone technology is very savvy, it's very nimble. So you cannot even, you're not aware of it being up like 150 to 250 meters above. So using electric motors, it's very silent. So you don't really understand. You're not really aware. And plus the zooming capabilities can actually zoom very closely to the people, for bad people. Yeah, I need to do stalking and everything. But yes, it's most unfortunate for industry players like us who are really intending good for the whole country to move into this new age of IR 4.0. But as I mentioned, this is not a problem that Malaysia only is facing. It's a worldwide phenomenon that we are all trying to collectively find a solution in addressing. Yeah.
Thank you for the answer. And I think it's kind of a continuation as well of what we were talking about earlier, that it's not just about one particular group of a company, but it's also about wider awareness and responsibility and I guess enforcements over how we can use this technology. So we have another question from Sue. What is the business model for drones? I guess how do you make money from drones, or how you can use drones to make money, perhaps?
Mr. Siu, I guess you are an entrepreneur such as myself, wanting to enter the drone industry. So interesting question. From my personal experience, we started off as servicing. So the business model is they pay us by days or per hectare, per kilometers. But of course, now we are moving into data. So in order for us to easily have that scale, we'll use a subscription model. So that's it's not the drones that's important, it's the system, the data. that we host and enable the predictive analytics to be conducted. But of course, there are many forms of business model in Malaysia. There are many industry players here locally. So each and every one of them has their respective business models. So it's up to, at the end of the day, which specific sector it is that you are operating in, and of course, how you organize your operations in terms of whether you want to outsource the acquisition part using drones, you do the processing, or you do the entire workflow from acquisition, processing, analytics to data platform.
All right, thank you, Faiz. We have one more last question, and this question is from Sarah. May I know the accuracy of the data? Oh, that's a really good point. Faiz?
Oh, Sarah, I guess you are a geomathematician or anywhere in surveying. So that's a good question. So in terms of accuracy, if data is inaccurate, it's pretty much useless. So hence why we need to maintain that level of precision. So of course, it's also subject to our clients' pockets, how much they're willing to spend. Using standard photogrammetry, we can assure a 3 centimeter to 5 centimeter accuracy, which is good enough for many sectors. But let's talk about aviation industry or oil and gas. They require millimeter precision. So we can use another sensor called LiDAR, light detection and range. That's a millimeter accuracy pinpoint precision. But of course, that would come at a higher cost. But just to answer your question, accuracy can be achieved at the millimeter scale. Yes, with the current technology that we have.
Okay, thank you, Faiz. I think we have a lot of questions. Thank you so much for everybody who's watching. We got one more surprise question. I think one more, right? Yeah, yes. Okay, so we have a question from Kim. We have porous borders and jalan tikus. They are exploited by smugglers and illegal immigrants. How much effort and cost must be taken to address these problems? This is a really good question, Faiz.
How much cost and effort? I think it depends on the area of interest or the border that you are trying to monitor or surveil. Jalan tikus, yes, that's an issue. You don't expect smugglers to be using a well-paved roadside, right? We'll of course use in the middle of the jungle forests. So we can tap into multiple technology acquisition. There are no CCTVs in the middle of the jungle, I'm sure. So we'll use drones for that. That actually fills in the gap, or we can use other forms of technology that would actually, at the end of the day, determine the costs. But for our country, yes, we have issues in Sabah specifically. So 1,400 kilometers. How do we manage the ESCOM region effectively to avoid intrusion, illegal smuggling to occur? So the cost will be up to the types of technology that we want to implement, so on and so forth. Yes. Kim, huh? Oh, next question.
Yeah, I think thank you so much, Kim, for that question as well, because it is quite a problem in the region as well. I mean, even in Malaysia, we have porous borders near Thailand. And yeah, you're right. It does. It's a good point. It does fill up a gap in the market that we have now, because unlike cameras, we can use drones are mobile, right, and they can move. All right, so I think that's our last question of the day. Faiz, would you like to say anything, any last words you would like to say to everyone? There's been a lot of interest and curiosity onto this topic, so I think maybe just some final parting words from you.
Well, as a millennial myself, I'm very excited. I mean, I just talked about drones when we were small, but now we can see it actually being predominant in our everyday lives. Now it's in commercial sector, but I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, it will be even more pervasive, talking about drone delivery, etc., etc. So it's good that we have such response. The interest shown by the general public, even the government, is very actively promoting or creating awareness on this issue. So I believe that the industry players in Malaysia are very strong, and we are trying to propel Malaysia to the next stage of development and innovation, because Malaysia, we are very competitive. We've come up with many innovations, talking about halal industry, talking about Islamic banking. Of course, now we are going to set our sights on becoming the premier global drone player in the world. So yes, it's a collective effort. So I invite you all, ladies and gentlemen, to wrap our heads around and try to push this industry forward. So for more information, please follow Star Media. And of course, just to give you a shout out of our company, Opotech, don't forget to follow us on our social media feed and also find us more information on our internet website. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Faiz. Thank you so much. I will. We are about to continue on with the rest of our program soon. I will see you in a bit. See you guys. Thank you very much, Amsha. It was indeed a very insightful presentation. I can see that many of you in the audience are interested. Don't worry, we have more coming your way. To wrap up the drone track, we are joined by a great panel lineup of industry-leading drone tech subject matter experts and practitioners. Our first guest panelist is Gandhi Supia, currently heads the Asset Management Department of Asset Consultancy Division for the Opus International. Gandhi is an experienced professional civil engineer with a global proficiency in the design, construction, and asset management of built environments and transportation infrastructures. Our special guest from Mimsos Berhad, Dilai Raj, is currently the Chief Technology Officer who leads all facets of its corporate R&D strategies, from spearheading company-wide research, technology, and product development, as well as rollout of POC solutions to key economic sectors in Malaysia. And he wasn't his final words. I am so sorry for everyone, but it's good news because rejoining the panel is Faiz or Amsha of OFO Tech. And the panel will be moderated by one Muhammad Farhan, who currently leads the drone tech and for-air ecosystem development for MDEC to realize the USD 384 million local market potential by 2025. I'm sure there are lots of curious minds out there, and we've seen it through the questions, who are keen to find out more about this emerging tech and its capabilities and benefits. This panel discussion is definitely not something that you want to miss. All right, so the panel is getting ready, so please stay tuned. We'll be back in just a short while.